everybody, welcome to Back Issues. I'm Sal.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Ben.
Today we're talking about God Loves, Man Kills. It's an X-Men story. Written by Chris Claremont, of course, with art by Brent Anderson. This was supposed to be drawn by Neil Adams. But he didn't want to anymore.
Oh.
It just said, nah.
He's like,
No, I think that the idea was... He was gonna... He was on board. I don't remember what happened, but he drew a couple of pages, and then they were like, I think he probably wanted more money or something like that. I'm sure it was financial, but the official story is like, everyone was too, had too much integrity to do. It doesn't matter. The point is, this book could have looked better, but it doesn't. That said...
Too much integrity?
Well, just like, that way everyone saves face without saying that they were greedy. Saying that everyone was
all
great.
their reasons
were pillars of...
Were noble. And...
See, I was hoping it was like, no, I have too much integrity to do this book because, we're making X-Men porn here.
Right. No,
they're just banging each other.
It's like
I can't draw that.
It's like Will Smith's official word on Independence Day 2 that he's really sad to hear his character died because he was too busy working on Suicide Squad to be in it, and not that he wanted his stupid son to be in the movie.
So this art looks pretty good.
It does. Brent Anderson is a really, really great artist, and he really drags the book into the realm of like pseudo-realism. At least it's dark. It's gritty. It's supposed to evoke feelings of like otherness for this book. It's not a usual X-Men story, although it is every X-Men story. It's supposed to be out of continuity, or at least it was back in like '82 when this book came out. Yeah, this was kind of Marvel's attempt at, hey, we could do graphic novels. Here's an X-Men graphic novel. And I think the idea was originally, because it was out of continuity, like Magneto dies in the beginning, and that sparks the events that happen. And then Marvel was like, you know what, we could probably get away with putting this out without making it...
Yeah, we'll just make it... It wasn't Magneto, it was someone else who dies.
Yeah, it's actually more horrifying. It's kind of like Killing Joke, where like Alan Moore's like, well, so I had Barbara Gordon get paralyzed because, of course... DC wasn't going to put that in the real comic books. And he's like, no, we are. So, in this, they introduce a character named William Stryker, who you might remember from X-Men 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the book that inspired X-Men 2.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Literally, almost point by point. William Stryker is a guy who's got a real problem with mutants. He captures Charles Xavier and forces him to use his powers to kill all the mutants. Like, that's the story. But totally different. Because in the original, or in the movie, William Stryker is like a senator or something.
No, he's
in the military. He's high up.
Right, he's a general, maybe?
Or something like that.
He's a military guy. He works for the government.
Yeah.
In this, William Stryker is a televangelist and a religious fundamentalist.
Oh.
Which is, I think, cooler.
That's better, yeah.
And
it's a lot better.
He has a TV show on ABC.
Okay.
Which they outright say in this book. It's on ABC.
Why ABC?
I don't know. Maybe Claremont had a real problem with the network, but like they're referenced in here. Like real names appear in this book.
No, ABC probably means the Anti-Beast channel. Whatever channel Hank McCoy is not.
They just don't like bees.
Yeah,
and by extension,
blue guy.
The rest.
The book actually opens with two African American children being hunted by a paramilitary group and then murdered and strung up on the jungle gym at their school.
Oh. Holy shit, that's dark.
Yeah. Apparently they were mutants.
Oh.
And the fundamentalist militia group that Stryker secretly formed, called the Purifiers, are on the lookout and hunt for mutants. Since these were children, they were easy to capture and murder.
Right.
And then strung up on the...
They couldn't kill, like, the X-Men.
No, but they can kill these two kids who are probably, like, 8 and 11.
Wow. Whose powers probably didn't even manifest yet.
No. They were just about to when one of their siblings was murdered. The other one's, like, powers were about to manifest.
How did they know?
That's a great question. I don't really know.
No.
I feel like there is some kind of stupid magic machine that tells them.
Cerebro?
Well, they build, and just like in the movie, they build like an anti-Cerebro that Professor X is put into to amplify his powers, final mutants. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It's not huge, though. It's like a little thing.
It really just is X-Men 2.
Yeah, well, X-Men 2 is this.
Right.
This came out in 82, right. X-Men 2, 2003. So, but really cool that they decided to use this book as an idea, but because for a lot of people it exemplifies X-Men. Mm-hmm. It is about it's their struggle. It's about just fighting against religious and racial intolerance. And they kind of couch it by having the African American kids be mutants in the beginning, and Reverend Stryker being a religious fundamentalist in the book.
Right. Is that Stryker?
No,
No,
that's
that's
Magneto.
Oh.
In this, Magneto looks a little old. The Purifiers catch the kids, kill them, string them up on the swing set, and then Magneto finds them and uses Magna powers to like unstring them up, and then he's like, "This is fucked. So I'm gonna go kick ass."
Right.
Also, thank God this wasn't a wooden jungle gym.
Right, because then I'd have to do it with my hands, and
I have arthritis.
yeah. So we find out that Stryker has all this money, and not unlike real televangelists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead of buying jets, he has like a skyscraper.
Well, it's because, like,
Claiming that having a
I can
jet
use it as an
means
expense
Yeah.
to convert people.
Right.
That's what I do with
Yeah,
it.
this is basically a flying church.
I mean, that's all I use it for.
They're not allowed on it,
Aside
except for
from
me.
aside from all of the trips I take to
Oh,
Europe.
yeah. or Colorado to go skiing, which is a real thing.
Or to my hookers in other countries.
So Stryker's like hatching a nefarious scheme. The book's like fucking 2
Yeah,
issues
there's not
long.
much here.
I think it was 2 issues. Stryker hatches his nefarious scheme. He's got people working for him. He's got like a handler who also is totally on board for his terrible plan. Everyone who's on board for Stryker's plan is not misled in any way. Like they're all part of
know what
they're all bought in, hook, line, sinker.
Yeah.
Stryker has a direct communication with God, and mutants are evil and terrible.
Why does he have such a problem with mutants?
Because,
it
like
like
in
the
the
movie,
movie,
his son is
his
a-
wife and kid were mutants. They got into a car accident when they were, whatever, she was pregnant, and the trauma triggered the delivery. So Stryker delivers his own kid, and the kid comes out like deformed, and he believes it's a mutant, so he kills it. And then when his wife asked for his baby, he held her in his arms and then cracked her neck and killed her. So, and then went on a religious crusade against mutants. This is that's how fucking dark and gross this book is. But it's deliberately gritty and dark to kind of really illustrate everything. This book has child murder. This book has racial violence. There's a scene where like Kitty Pryde, who is still Ariel or Shadowcat, I think she's Shadowcat in this book. Shadowcat is the youngest member of the X-Men, not unlike Days of Future Past, where she's the young one who's got a lot to learn, and we're kind of seeing the universe through her eyes.
Right.
She's going to yoga or whatever with this friend of hers who happens to be African American, but the reason why it's an issue is because when the children are found, they're found with mutie written on them. And I think the idea is that somebody uses the word around Shadowcat. They're like, "Oh, you're a mutie lover" or something. And Shadowcat is horrified and really offended.
Right.
And her friend, the African American girl, is like, "Well, who cares? They're just words." And then Kitty says,
Right.
"Well, what if he said that you were an N-word lover?"
Right.
And you're like, "But they don't say N-word in the
Right.
book." But I will on this show because we're not that kind of show.
No.
We're not that bold. And but it was also kind of like, wow, because 82, X-Men comic, the Comics Code?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did that get through the comics code?
It didn't. They were just like, fuck it.
Oh,
No, we're
okay.
putting it out anyway. We don't care if there's no stamp.
That doesn't.
Yeah.
They don't need a stamp.
This is when they're figuring out.
They're like, hey, wait a minute. And then 30 years later, they got rid of it. We're really like hammering home the message of the book every page. We also get the establishment of the Shadowcat Colossus relationship and how creepy and weird that is.
Because she's really young.
Because she's 14 and he's like 25. Maybe he's 19, but even still, ugh.
Well, he's still a gigantic Russian guy, and
Yeah.
she is this petite girl.
Yeah, she's
Yes.
a child.
She's a child.
Like, the way you depict them just differently size-wise
Yeah,
Right.
is
it
awkward.
Awkward.
Yes. The X-Men are, at this point, Colossus, Shadowcat, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, which is weird, but only because people are trying to reconcile it in continuity, because right before it, Cyclops quit the X-Men after Jean Grey died.
Okay.
But then, he joined the X-Men somewhere. So people kind of put it in the timeline. No, it takes place somewhere between these two issues here.
Right.
But no. They did not think of that back when they were making it. And in fact, they made no reference to it until like the early 2000s. So this book it existed as a separate title. This is God Loves Man Kills.
this
Fucking
is
amazing.
standalone.
Standalone book. And then around like 2000, 2001, they came out with this book called Extreme X-Men. the right time for it, because everything was extreme.
Yeah, in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, 2000, 2001, Extreme X-Men, right at the end of everything being extreme. And
they all had, like, baggy jeans on,
They looked-
like, ripped grunge clothes.
yeah,
and
they
shit.
were sponsored by Jinko and No Fear, and
And they tagged things
Yeah.
with spray paint.
they definitely, I mean, their outfits are evocative of the time.
That's funny as hell.
And in it, they did a story called God Loves, Man Kills 2, because Extreme X-Men was a pillar of integrity, and holy damn, was it not great. And kind of an offense to this title. I'm really impressed, by the way, that trade volumes of God Loves, Man Kills that come out now don't also include it.
Number 2.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
good.
don't. And ultimately, by the way, Stryker survives in this title, but dies, 20 years later in the 2001, 2002 series.
Okay.
And then the movie came out, which kind of also popularized the story.
Right.
So, the Purifiers go to the X-Mansion, and go and fuck shit up.
Han Solo shows up and
That
uses
is-
his blaster.
That is very much Han Solo's blaster.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Who's this?
That's, Anne. She's Stryker's right-hand woman,
Okay.
and also a closeted mutant.
Is her name Anne Solo?
She might as well be. We don't know that until the end of the title.
Okay.
Cyclops.
Wait, she's a closeted mutant, but then how do they find mutants and have not found her?
They're basically using the resources that, like, a millionaire and his religious fanatics might use, which is word of mouth. It's, tips,
like outing people and
Yeah.
shit, like, gossip and bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, they found the kids because they probably, maybe one of them, maybe there was a rumor in town, that kind of thing. Later they'll
it's
be
not
able
some technology.
No, because later they find the mutants by using Professor X's psychic powers. But Professor X gets kidnapped by Stryker and plugged into the machine, like, right away.
Okay.
But the machine is also a torture device / VR machine that makes... Yeah.
Professor X is captured,
Yeah.
and he can't just mind control people to make
Well, he
them
was
let him go?
unconscious when they got him.
The first thing they did was take him out.
Yeah, they, like, knocked him out. And then when he woke up, he was already in the machine.
Professor X
know.
is not very effective in this book.
No. In fact, he's a huge lame ass in this book, because at the end, well, you know what? I'll save it, because it's...
Okay.
Okay.
I remember looking at I remember the end being like, the fuck is this? But Professor X gets captured and actually winds up going through kind of like a Clockwork Orange-esque torture experience,
Yeah.
where he is nailed to a cross and forced to watch his X-Men murder him.
That's horrifying.
This, by the way, comes on the heels of a televised debate between Professor X and Stryker.
Mm-hmm. Stryker
Stryker and Professor X are both, on ABC. They're trying to, show both perspectives.
Right.
Yeah.
And Stryker gives his. Professor X is also not quite out as a mutant.
Mm-hmm.
But Stryker suspects, because he's such a mutie lover, that he's probably also a mutant.
Right.
How dare he?
Yeah. And then arranges for his capture. He also arranges for the capture of Cyclops and Storm by faking an auto accident. So in the ruins of the auto accident, Cyclops and Storm are taken. They are put into Stryker's secret base, where Professor X is tortured. Later, Stryker will kind of, mind control. It was more like reprogramming, through torture. The idea of killing the mutants.
Okay.
And he forces Professor X to shoot like a mind blast at Cyclops and Storm and kills them.
What?
Whoa!
Or so we think.
Right.
When the X-Men eventually show up, thanks to Kitty Pryde being the last one to be hunted, but using
Because, she's so inconsequential.
Yeah. Well, she was staying back home and guarding the base. Because the effective members of the team, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine, they go to seek out revenge against the Purifiers for having captured Professor X and also their comrades.
So Kitty Pryde is pre-90s Jubilee.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly who she is.
Well, how do they capture all these super powerful mutants?
Well, they have a whole bunch of guys. With guns, Ethan.
All right, that's a little flimsy.
It
That's
is.
the most
They only
effective thing
capture
ever.
3 people.
Oh.
They only get
Well, I thought you said that Kitty Pryde was the last one who wasn't...
who wasn't
caught.
busy.
Oh.
The X-Men had left to go seek out revenge against the Purifiers,
okay.
and Kitty
Oh,
was
okay.
at the base at the time with Peter's magically time-altered, accelerated in age sister, Ilyana Rasputin, who was really like 10 or 11, but through X-Men wound up coming back from the future as a teenager. Okay. Don't worry, later she will be de-aged again and then catch the mutant legacy virus and then die.
Right, I recall.
But she won't die.
Colossus will freak the fuck out.
Yes, and then he will cure the legacy virus through his own death, you see.
Because that makes sense.
And then she will come back and become magic. I think she was already magic, but then she becomes magic and they use her properly.
Right.
And now
by use her properly, you mean they made her a teenager so that people could bang her.
Yes. And also she provides the current base for the X-Men right now, which is purgatory.
You know what? They probably took a note from Kitty Pryde. They're just like, look, we have this really awkward relationship between a guy who's
like older than you.
Older.
Yeah.
And a girl that's like 14. Mm-hmm. Instead of just not having a relationship, we'll just take this other character and make her old enough to have a relationship.
Yeah.
Because this is a fucking soap opera.
Well, they effectively fixed that by having Colossus cheat on her with an alien in Secret Wars.
Right.
And then he got embarrassed and then crashed through the wall.
Yeah.
So the X-Men kind of like interrogate purifiers and get the information about where Professor X is being held. They go to Stryker's building. They find out... They actually wind up collecting the bodies of Cyclops and Storm and team up with Magneto.
You mean they collect their dead friends?
Yes, except one of them discovers that they're not quite dead.
They're mostly dead.
Exactly.
Are they in like
very different.
a Xavier-induced coma?
Yeah, it's like a... Yeah. And it was technically an electrically induced coma, but I'm sure that Professor X is like somewhere in the deep regions of his mind wanted to keep them alive.
Okay.
And so whatever. I think Wolverine actually like sniffs that they're still alive or something. He uses his heightened senses to tell. There's a faint heartbeat. Magneto uses his master of magnetism to resuscitate them immediately with no brain damage whatsoever.
What? How does magnetism resuscitate a person?
Well, because
there's iron in the blood.
But
winds
so
up,
what?
Well, Magneto uses his powers questionably throughout this book. At one point, he extracts information from a purifier through this questionable method of using his powers over him and wisps of metal surrounding the guy, and he eventually tortures him enough to get the information he needs. I have no idea if it's...
Is he stabbing him with the metal?
It looks
like he's threatening to.
It looks like menacing, but at the same time, I'm not even sure if the guy's even conscious.
He looks like he's unconscious.
It looks, and I'm not even sure if this is supposed. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. It looks like metal, but it could also be.
It could be just his power.
It could just be a power.
These are just waves of magnetism.
Yeah.
I'm using that to realign his center so that when his chi opens up, he can only speak the truth.
Right. That's not what he does, but he might as well have, because it's so unclear what the hell he's doing. But in any case, this is Magneto's MO, is, I'll use my powers! And everyone's like, yay! And then they move on.
You know, the movies did a fantastic job of really using his powers well.
Yes. And making it very clear what his power is and how it works.
Except for the third one, but what his power limit is.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes I can move bridges, or I could, make a cool disc out of the iron that Mystique plugs into your ass.
Hey.
That's the best scene in the whole movie.
That shit was cool.
It's easily the best scene in the movie. Just, and then creates a disc, and then he just creates two little balls and then kills everyone in the building.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing.
When he's forming the balls and you see them, coming, and they have all those little pockets in them.
Yeah.
And they're just like, no, I'm slowly making my spheres.
I'm making the spheres. Exactly.
You're seeing them grow.
That is attention to detail. That's why I like X-Men 2 the most. It's my favorite X-Men movie of all time. So, X-Men and Magneto team up because Charles is missing and the mutants are being attacked.
And they recover the bodies.
And they resuscitate them using magic. Yeah. And so now the X-Men are formed, and Stryker is going to have a huge rally where he's also planning on unleashing his secret weapon of Professor X amplifying his powers and killing all the mutants. The rally is huge and attended by, lots of people, including a U.S. senator who is a closeted mutant as well. He doesn't know he's a mutant. But, whatever. So Stryker uses he's like, use the thing! Actually, Magneto attacks first. He shows up, kind of like at the end of Days of Future Past, where, the fucking president's there, and he's like, nope!
Yeah.
fucking, here we go.
Right.
He's like, let's do this. And then Stryker forces Professor X to use his powers to, like, shoot at Magneto. But Magneto uses his Magneto powers, which is everything, and protects himself from dying.
Well, because he has the helmet, right?
No!
He doesn't have the helmet. I was going to say, if only he had the helmet.
Yeah, he was wearing it, but it doesn't matter. It's more like a psychic, concussive blast.
This is the first time he's had the helmet in the whole book.
Yeah, we don't see him with
and
it.
It doesn't help him at all.
Nope.
Although it says his shields, his natural psychic defenses hold.
Yes.
Barely. So
yeah, Magneto has natural psychic defenses.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
Actually,
he does.
Chris Claremont wrote it, so he must have always had it. Because Chris Claremont is an X-Men architect. But when the psychic shit starts happening, like the U.S. Senator who's like, okay, this has gone on far enough, he starts to feel woozy. And anyone who's feeling woozy or starts getting like a nosebleed is actually a mutant. So at one point, Stryker's right-hand woman, the one who's like assassinating people and actually she killed the two kids in the beginning of the story.
Okay.
She's like, Stryker, what's going on? And he's like, your nose is bleeding. And she's like, what? But it's impossible. And he's like, and he's on this high podium. He just pushes her over the edge, and she fucking cracks her neck and dies.
Holy crap!
On national television, on ABC, no less.
Wow.
And then the X-Men attack.
Through glasses?
No, it's framing
because that's like where the TV.
Yeah, it's where like each.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, it's a cool framing device. Actually, it's hard to tell because it looks like when you're articulating mental powers, it's hard to also then use like the outline of a television screen to frame what exactly people are seeing.
You're like, wait, is that someone's brain?
Yeah,
that's looking at what they're seeing through their mental ability,
right?
Or is that the TV?
Or is that the TV? It's the TV. So the X-Men attempt to free Professor X, which they wind up doing.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah,
what does it matter? Because apparently no one's going to die from this.
No, they
just like Storm and Cyclops didn't die.
Oh yeah, no. Well, Stryker asked Professor X to focus on them specifically. He was testing it out. And he like aimed and fired at them. Number one, he wasn't 100% ready. Number two, I think concentrating on two of his students to murder is more dicey than him just, like blanket killing all the mutants.
Like carpet bombing all the
exactly.
Mutants. See, I think that I get the opposite feeling from that because if you're focusing on two mutants specifically,
that should really
that should be like, oh no, that's like
if
really focused.
If any expenditure of your power can kill, a quarter of the population of the planet, then shooting it at two people should annihilate them.
Exactly. Yes. So if they didn't die, I'm thinking like everyone gets a headache, everyone's nose bleeds a little bit, and then everyone's like, and then it passes. It's over.
I ruined everyone's day a little bit.
Was he in the
Aha! My plan!
My diabolical scheme is complete.
Was he in the machine when he knocked out Storm and Cyclops?
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the machine
he was on like a proto machine.
Yeah, maybe the machine wasn't
ready
to kill yet.
Yeah.
They had to turn somewhere.
Well, he was in I think he was in the torture machine.
Oh.
And then later they put him into the anti-cerebro
so that
machine.
was just his regular Xavier power,
yeah.
not his amplified machine.
No, that was like his torture-addled Professor X powers.
What would have been fantastic is if they got a mutant, an unnamed mutant, that they brought in.
Yeah, and he killed him.
And he just destroyed them.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
We're going to have you focus on one person to test it, and it just obliterates
just so
them.
We can prove that this will
good,
actually work.
Okay.
Right, but and also it shows the audience that, like, this means business.
But they would never do that, because they're like, oh no, because then Professor X killed someone.
Yes.
You can't have that.
That's right. So the X-Men free Professor X, and then they all stand on stage for a photo that no one took, and confront Stryker using their words.
Okay.
And
instead of Wolverine using his claws.
Right. Wolverine's like, I got the cure for your problem.
Make him a martyr.
Yes. Yes, right. And the X-Men are very clear about it. So the X-Men and Stryker wind up getting into an impromptu debate about their opinions.
Why doesn't Colossus just walk up to him all in metal and just be like, I'm not letting you go. Like, walk. Do anything you may want.
Stryker doesn't want to leave. Stryker has no intention of leaving. He's like, he's surrounded by hundreds of his followers.
Yeah, but then just have him arrested.
There's no reason. What? There's nothing they can prove, like they can pin on him.
Aside from the testimony of Cyclops,
eventually
Storm,
they'll get
and
that.
Professor X.
Yeah, eventually
but nobody would trust a friggin' mutie.
Hey, you watch your mouth.
Yeah, wow.
Can't even believe I'm on the
We
same
gotta
couch
rate this
as you.
episode. But Otherwise, they're called filthy muties. So
they need to take him down on national television. Like
they need to disprove his argument.
Yeah, exactly.
So what they wound up doing is actually making him admit to capturing Professor X and forcing him to try and kill all mutants. And when they're talking about like how basically all mutants are just people, he actually winds up using Nightcrawler because he's the most horrifying looking. He's the most that looks like a devil. Perpetuating his allegory of religious fundamentalism.
He looks moist.
He has this one line where he says like, "Would you dare call that thing human?" Which I love because Nightcrawler has this weird posture where he's like, "Aww." It just looks real sad
every time, guys.
Everybody points to me as the problem with mutants.
Oh, sure. I'm blue. I've got 3 fingers and 3 toes.
Kitty winds up saying, he's more human than you are, which incites Stryker to pick up at one point previously dropped weapon, that being a gun, and points it at her. And there's this scene that's like comprised to look like, oh shit, he's gonna do it. And then they fill up a panel with blam, which is comic book for a gun fired. Which no gun has ever made that sound. And then the reveal is that one of the security guards who was running the event shoots Stryker. And everyone's like, what the hell happened? And he goes, did anyone else not notice this armed man trying to shoot a teenage girl? And his followers flip out, but the law is like, yeah, good call, buddy. And yeah, so Stryker winds up going to jail.
How did they not set it up so that he fires a shot at her and it just passes through her because she can do that?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my god, he fired at a little girl.
It's actually kind of funny that they wound up choosing that both the youngest, most innocent member of the X-Men also has the power to be totally safe from that attack.
Yeah.
So we didn't need that, but it was really cool to show because the security guard is not a mutant,
right?
And actually,
he just believes that this guy is crazy for pulling a gun on him.
And they kind of had a move the car George moment earlier, where he and the other security guard are talking about like what they'd like. One of them is like, the security guard who winds up shooting is like, this is a really fucked up event. And the other one's like, yeah, I'd much rather have been at the other event that they hired security for,
where they were passing out soda.
It was a game.
The Rangers are playing the Islanders over in Garden City.
So
you see that T-shirt cannon? Oh, I love that thing.
Yeah. And security forces get free T-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
So, at the end of the book, the whole X-Men, including Magneto, go back to Xavier's mansion. And Professor X is like, so we should join Magneto because I'm wrong. We can't actually make a deal with humanity. We should just fight them and kill them.
That cop proves that you can!
That's the lesson that Professor X comes to through his torture and
I guess because he was horribly tortured.
Yes. And Magneto's like, yep. And then the X-Men are like, no!
Thank you!
Did you read the book?
It's your dream! Like, what the hell?
What's wrong with you?
And so Magneto,
yeah, Cyclops gives a little speech.
Yep. And then Magneto's like, let's go. And Charles, like, steadily reaches for Magneto and then recoils and says, no, I can't. But you should come join our team. And Magneto's like, nah. And then he pieces out.
No, you guys are bitches.
Right. Yeah. So then he leaves, and the X-Men are like, it's fucked up, right? That's our life.
Well, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah. And
also, wow, how can we not have any confidence in our leader who just went back on his morals?
Well, then Professor X cries. He's like, how could I have been such a fool? I'm so ashamed of myself for doubting my own dream. And it's like, yeah, what the crap, man?
And then every member of the team walks up and slaps him and then leaves.
Or walks out and quits the X-Men and they have to create a
They say, you're only human. Was the whole thing in the book.
That's basically the whole, crux of the book.
Yeah.
And, so God Loves Man Kills is just a distillation of all of the allegories of the X-Men in one 2-issue title, which is pretty damn cool. And it wound up being outside continuity for a long time, like I said, until it was time to start ruining everything, in the 90s and late 2000s.
Right.
This took so many weird turns that I think could have been avoided and made for a better story. I still like it.
Number one,
I thought it was very straightforward.
It's
like there's a couple things where it's like, well, that's awfully convenient that Xavier was so easily dispatched.
Yes,
but
we need
call that
a
weird turn so much as it's just it's a little bit lazy writing, and the book isn't about that.
Right,
the book is trying to make a point.
Yeah, we need to get to the point. Yeah. I think that everything is kind of just leading up to the conversation at the end.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, we have to sell it in 2 issues.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. We don't have time. And also, I really appreciate that. Like, this could have been an event. Mm-hmm. If it were done now,
Yeah.
It would have lost all of its meaning by the time they got to the end.
Yep.
Wolverine would have had to go back in time and kill himself.
Yeah, but I understand like a double-size issue.
Yeah.
But, like if you did 3,
Yeah.
maybe 4 at the most.
I mean, a lot happens in those two issues,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of impressed that they do it.
I will say, unlike a lot of the comics today, it seems like they're packing a lot in the pages.
You're getting a lot. There's no padding. It's all just story and character work.
Yeah.
Done.
And they kind of ask you to accept some things on
just on face value, but
like the fact that the militia would become powerful enough to take out this many X-Men and capture Xavier.
Yeah.
They don't really establish that they're that powerful, it seems like, but okay, well, they left out their rise to power or whatever,
Yeah, we introduced Stryker and the Purifiers within the first page and established their dominance by them murdering 2 unarmed children.
Yeah.
So it's like, while, it's vicious and horrible, it's also kind of like, but they're really, but that's not very powerful. Like, you
Not only
kill
that, it also leaves no room for error where it's like, well, maybe they have a side of things. No, they are the bad guys.
They're clearly evil. X-Men are good. Let's see how that plays out. X-Men God Loves Man Kills by Claremont and Brent Anderson. This was a cool story. I like it. I think it's an essential reading when you're dealing with X-Men. If anybody's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting an X-Men, throw this at them. Because it really also it requires to have no context for what's happening.
Yeah.
You could also be like, why are their costumes so terrible? Like, some of them are terrible. Like, actually, just kitties.
Yeah,
everyone else is awesome.
horrible.
All the other costumes were usually designed by Dave Cockrum, so they look fucking cool.
They look very classic.
Hers
Yes.
the yellow and green one?
Yes, with like the weird eyes.
Diamond eyes.
Yeah.
Yep, terrible.
The only problem I see with this as like a easy quintessential book is it's missing a few of the characters. Like you don't have
Jean Grey?
Rogue, you don't have Jean Grey.
Jean Grey's dead,
Right,
And Rogue
right.
hasn't been introduced yet.
But Jean Grey's on the cover right here.
Oh yeah.
As
Well,
the Phoenix.
and that's the thing. It's funny. I was actually going to talk about just the cover. This is like a newer collected volume of it. This cover is garbage. It just says the name of the title, and here's an excerpt of some art.
Yep.
The original covers, the first one, which is actually behind me, is one of my favorites. It's like a painted, kind of like avant-garde, odd version of it.
Well, that
the original
looks very
cover,
much like a movie poster.
yeah, which I really like. The original cover was this guy, which is like cool, but also what am I even looking at?
Yeah, wow. Okay.
But it's one of those things where it's like, this is a graphic fucking novel, and it's just, this is the book. And Marvel did a couple of these. One of them is also like The Death of Captain Marvel, which is just a prestige kind of format. It's really cool. Really like it.
It must have been confusing for people, because there's nothing on here that I can tell that indicates that it's out of continuity.
No.
So people were probably like, well, wait a minute, isn't Cyclops not there?
And I'm sure it confused the hell out of people, but you know what?
Plus, Jean Grey is still dead,
Yeah.
so...
But they also didn't have... They did not have an internet to bitch on.
No, they had letters that they got to write and then never get
But they
published.
also didn't have an internet to, like, look up. Like,
No,
is
what
this
the
a
problem was,
continuity or not?
there was
And
no cool channel
Yeah.
to explain it. Actually, here are a couple of the Neil Adams pages that he finished at the time,
wow.
which are
That's friggin' phenomenal.
objectively just way cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that shit.
Yeah, and it's Neil Adams at the top of his game at the time, so it's
my
and
God.
a little around the same time. Cool.
Was the anti-mutant sentiment in continuity at the time? Was it at a similar
Similar
fervor?
level? Yeah, I think so. At the 80s,
So really,
They were-
there's
they
no
were-
reason this wasn't in continuity. Cause
no,
but it was within the like tone of the story at the time.
Well, they were in space a lot more like around this time. But also I think that the idea was that with this they didn't have to pull punches. And they could really like tell a story that doesn't have to be high flying and swashbuckling. It could just be about race or about religion or about the core issue with the X-Men.
Right, and they don't have to reference anything else.
That's the other thing. They could do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and they wanted to use Cyclops, and they can this way.
Yeah,
because Cyclops is critical in this book. He's like the moral center of the group.
yeah, he's the disciple of Xavier.
Yeah,
And then he was killed and brought back to life.
Yeah, later. Not in this.
Yeah.
they all.
Well, I mean,
are.
he's not killed,
I'm sorry.
but
Yes,
he's-
he is. Yeah, he was put. He died. X-Men, God Loves Man Kills. You can pick it up in the description box down below this video, and we'll see you guys next time with an all new episode of Back Issues. I am Sal.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you guys next time.